Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So don't forget to click that subscribe and bell icon to receive a notification each time I upload a new video. Hi everyone, it's Saturday the 2nd of March, which can only mean it's time for a brand new art challenge over on the Mission Inspiration Facebook group. So I'll put a link on screen right now, but there's also one in the description area below this video if you want to join in the monthly art challenge with us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to my overhead camera and show you how I'm going to tackle the prompts for this month. Okay, so I've taken a sheet of 8x8 watercolour cardstock from my Mission Inspiration journal for 2019, 8 inches by 8 inches, which is my preferred size to work for the Mission Inspirations. So this is the mission brief for the month of March. So we've got our 3 colours: rose, sunflower, spring green. We've got our words for inspiration, which are bloom, spring, growth, botanical and heart. And then I've got my list of ingredients of things to include. So I've gone through and kind of pulled out, first of all, colours. So I've got magenta, lime and lemon for my 3 colours. I've also got a darker green, which is, well, it says evergreen on there, so that I can mix, maybe make the greens a little bit darker. Who knows? So I've got those. Natural fibre string or jute. So I've pulled some string from my collection, so I've got that. Use fragments of food packaging labels, or food packaging or labels. So I've got a packet of, an old packet of fondue. Actually, I haven't even eaten this stuff. I've just literally taken it out of the box and put it to one side. I doubt that I ever will do. I'm not even sure what the sell-by date on this was. Look, 2014. So that's going to go in the bin. 7th of November 2014, look. And it was sealed, but it's going to go. So I've got that, and I've got a box from some tea bags. So I've got my food packaging, texture paste with paint, add texture with paste or paint through a stencil. I've got my Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous Flourish stencil, which I would like to use on this today. Obviously I've got paint and I've got a pot of texture paste to hand. This is the Imagination Crafts one. Obviously other brands are available. A stamp with white ink or paint. I've got white gesso. I've got some cut and dry. And I've got my indigo blue text or script stamp to hand if I need to add any of that. Add a die cut or two. Okay, I've pulled out a couple of Tim Holtz Alterations steel rule dies, which I would like to use for this one. So that's the add a die cut or 2 or 3. Add a border with book text or washi tape. I've got a drawer full here just at hand. I've got my gesso and handwritten text. Well, that's free flowing as and when I'm ready. I've also got my ever ready cup of coffee. So I have got everything I need to get started. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is to add some gesso down onto the page, and number 7 is add gesso mixed with a colour. So obviously these list of ingredients you no longer have to do in order, which is a huge bonus. So I'm going to take some green, little bit of green down on the palette. I've got my white gesso and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the green paint, and then I'm going to add that to the base. Let's move that out of the way before I get it covered in. Oh, do you know, it's going to be one of those days today, I think. One of those days. Okay. So gesso mixed with colour. More gesso. And then I'm just going to keep adding the gesso to the areas where I don't particularly want too much green. And that's going to then tone it down for me, just to give the background a bit of a nice uneven kind of mottled effect, which I don't particularly like. Solid colours in backgrounds, so which is why I prefer a background to have kind of like a mottled effect. And I'm hoping that the camera's picking that up and it's not bleaching out too much. So where it's a little bit too white, add a little bit more colour. Where it's a little bit too green, add a bit more white just to take it out. It's literally just playing it by eye. And I think I'm pretty much happy with that background to start off with. So that's going to be number 7 taken care of. So I'll just drop that in some water. Grab a pen. So number 7, add gesso mixed with colour. So I've done that one. So I'll grab my heat gun, get this dried off, get this cleared away, and then we should be ready to move on to the next bit. Okay, so the next bit that I'm going to tackle, add texture paste or paint through a stencil. So I've got my Tim Holtz Flourish stencil. I've got some structure paste, but what I've also done is I've got a little touch of terracotta paint, and I've also got that Dina Wakley Evergreen. I've just put a little bit on this polypropylene mat, and I'm going to take some of that structure paste. I'm going to take a little bit of the green, just mix it in to the structure paste. Just take a little bit, just to darken it up a little bit. That spatula is actually really, really rubbish. I'm going to have to put that to one side, clean it. I'll have to use a different one. There we go, I've got this one. It's just to kind of, the brown or that terracotta, it's just to darken it up a little bit, just to give me a bit of an uneven edge. I've got the stencil on sideways. Haven't really got enough out, I don't think. That's it. That's better. So what this will do is this will give me a kind of marbled effect across the top. Just grab another one. Let's just get a bigger spatula this time, more like a spackle spatula. And then take a little bit more of that green paint. So you don't just have to stick with the one colour, you can add colour to it, which gives you all kinds of interesting effects. Okay, so I need to get that in the wash. So not just plain white, you've also got bits of green in there, bits of brown showing through, all kinds of different effects on there. Right, I need to get that dry, and I also need to get all this cleared up, so I shall do that, have a mouthful of coffee, and then I'll be right back. Coffee first, of course. Okay, so that is step number, or ingredient number 3 added to the page. Now, before we go any further, this is now dry, but I want to add some more stencil into it because obviously it just stops dead, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to just kind of add a little bit more to it, if you know what I mean. So I'm just turning the stencil around. I've got a little bit of green paint. That's the evergreen again. I'm just going to add a little bit into there, and I've got a sponge, which I will use again later. This is just a little bit of a craft sponge, and I just want to go around just to add a little bit more interesting detail into the background, just kind of echoing what we've got down at the bottom. I'm just going to turn it round a little bit more green paint. Just lightly go through. The watercolour cardstock that I'm using is textured, so I'm not going to get a perfect impression anyway, but that's not really what I'm going for. Just a light kind of botanic feel, if you like. Oop. There goes one of my spatulas on the floor. There we go. That should... yeah, that'll do. That will do. So it kind of mirrors that pattern. I'm going to centre stuff on this line here anyway, so that's not too much of an issue. Okay, so next then, I want to add... let's have a look what we got next. I'm not going to use the fragments of food packaging labels yet. I'm not going to add the fibre just yet. Stamp with white ink or paint. Add a die cut or 2 or 3. That will do. Border, finish off at the end. So next thing is going to be stamping with white ink or paint. Okay. So we're going to stamp with white ink or paint. In this instance, it's going to be paint. So I've got a piece of cut and dry. Oh. Just standard cut and dry, and I've cut it down. And I've got my white gesso here. So I'm going to take a little bit of white paint, and I'm just going to load up the piece of cut and dry with white gesso. So effectively, I'm turning this little piece of cut and dry foam into a white paint style ink pad. Now when you're using paint, acrylic paint particularly, with a rubber stamp, you have to be very careful, because if you allow the paint to dry on the stamp after you've used it, it will stay. You won't be able to, without scrubbing the stamp, you won't be able to clean it off. So if you don't want to ruin your stamp, you need to get it under running water pretty much as soon as you've finished using it. I'm going to go over a couple of times. And the best way to clean a stamp with paint is an old toothbrush or a cheap toothbrush you bought specifically for the task of cleaning stamps. I also use a toothbrush to clean my stencils too. A soft toothbrush, because obviously too hard bristles and it may damage the stencil. So a soft toothbrush I find is the best thing for cleaning a stencil or a rubber stamp. Of course I'm using gesso, but you could use acrylic paint as well if you want to. Or even if you've got a white ink pad, use that. But I found that things like the distress picket fence or the white one from Stampin' Up never dries properly for some reason. It takes forever to dry. The picket fence one always picks up colour from somewhere else. Okay, so I've even gone over that stencil in there just to kind of blend it out. Right, so as I was just saying, I need now to go get this washed, so I will wash that and be right back. And that can be drying au naturel in the process. Okay, so stamp with white ink or paint. Excellent. Okay, so for the next step, I'm going to combine using fragments of food packaging labels with adding a die cut or two. So what I'm going to do there, just need to clear a bit of space. Oh, things just keep rolling onto the floor this morning. Not good. So, and I should have really tidied up really, shouldn't I? Okay, so what I'm going to do there is I have Tim Holtz Alterations Bird Silhouette steel ruled die. I also have the Garden Greens steel rule die. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to cut the bird out using this. So I'm literally just going to drop that over the top and then cut it out using that. Now, depending on size, I may cut this twice and then flip it. Maybe. Who can say? I don't know. Haven't decided yet. So I need my big shot. So I shall, in fact, let me go away rather than you just sit here and watch me cranking through the big shot. I'll go away and do that, and then I'll come back and show you what I've done when I've done it. Because that's probably going to be the easiest thing to do rather than trying to manhandle my big shot into frame. Like that. And then knocking everything off, because there's not a lot of room and space here. Okay, so decided to fast forward there rather than just cut it all together. So I've got two birdies, two fragments of, or two pieces of, what am I trying to say? I've got two die cuts of leaves. There we go, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to bring back my page, just put those to one side and then just have a little play with some placement now. So I'm going to put one birdie there and have another birdie there, I think. So that's where my two die cuts are going to go, and then also I'm going to probably add maybe a little bit of that into the background like so, just to kind of cover the edge, just to give it a little bit of depth and dimension. Not sure I'm going to use this one at all, but hey ho. Right, so first thing I want to do, of course, is just knock back the backgrounds on those. So I'm going to get a piece of sponge, and I've got my white gesso again, and then I'm just going to go over the tops around the edges. In fact, I may even just go over the entire thing, just to knock it all back. A bit more paint. Okay, that's one. And then I'll do the same for this one. So I just need to get some more gesso on the lid. And the way to do that is to shake it up. Because in the instructions or the list of ingredients, it doesn't say that you can't paint over your food labels. I think once the paint actually dries, you'll still be able to see through the gesso. It's up to you how much of that opacity you actually want to have visible. I'm going to leave some of it showing. This is actually quite a lot of fun. These die cuts are a little bit delicate. And I could turn it over, but you know, so that it's just the plain sort of grey grunge card, but I don't see the point in using product packaging if you're going to do that. You might as well just use grunge board and I'm done with it. Whereas at least with this you actually get to see a hint of what you've done or what you've got underneath, and I think sometimes it's worth more doing it that way. Okay, so I'll put the gesso to one side. And then just give these a quick blast, just so that they're all dry. And then we'll come back when they're done. They're dry. Now, I know I said I'd brought out these Dina Wakley paints that I was going to use for the colours for this project, but do you know what? I'm going to change my mind a little bit. I'm going to actually bring in Distress Archive. I've got peeled paint, I've got picked raspberry, and I've got fossilised amber. But I've also got vintage photo. So I think what I'm going to do this is trying not to drop everything all over the place, is I'm going to have a go. So just load those up. Of course, these new archival distress inks are permanent. So I'm going to go over the top. That's one. Of course, I will, as usual, forget to talk while I'm doing this. Of course, these inks are, like I said, permanent when dry, so there's no worry about reactivating them later on. Oh, let's get another. Okay, so this time, let's bring out, would help if I actually got these centered first off, wouldn't it? Let's pick up some of that nice ambery, or in my case, sunflowery yellow. Cool. Me likey, but I'm a little bit biased. I like the fact that's going into the red. Yes, I like that. So we've got a little bit of that pink, a little bit of that yellow, which is also giving us a little bit of orangey colour, which looks nice. So I'm now going to grab just a cosmetic sponge, and I'm going to grab a bit of the brown vintage photo. Just darken up the feet a little bit, just to kind of edge. It's better. Just give it a little bit of aging around the end. Almost like adds a little bit of a border. We'll do the same with this one. So that's gone a little bit darker. Cool. And then the green, put that to one side just to dry a little bit. Don't really want to get the ink all over my mat. Surprising what effects you can get just by teaming different colours or different mediums with different, you know, colours. Like I've used the white gesso here and then green archival ink on top, just to kind of see what you get. And that's on top of the packaging, the actual print. Add a little bit of that brown just into the stems. Bit of variation in colour. I think that will do me for now. Okay, so I'm going to give these a few minutes to dry off and then I'll bring back my art journal page again, because these do take just a few minutes. Okay, so while they're just finishing off drying, so use fragments of food packaging or labels and add a die cut or 2 or 3. Well, it will be in a second. So that's those two added off. And obviously we've used our green, the sunflower and the pink now. So we're well on our way to completion. So let's bring that page back in and then we can place that leaf kind of there, and then I can put my first birdie about there and my second birdie about there. I might just move that right up there and put my first birdie there and my second birdie there. Yep, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, jute. Number 1, add natural fibres, string, jute or burlap. I'm going to add this, I think, down towards the bottom. Or do I? Or do I do it so it looks as though they're actually holding it in their beaks? Like a worm, so that they're joined. Actually, I like that idea. So I'm not going to need all of that, but the first thing I need to do is to get these glued down. So I need some strong glue, or decent glue that I can use. So Tombow Mono Aqua. So this has got a bit of a fine precision nozzle. I can add a little bit on each of the leaves, and just give it a bit of a spread. It's got time, got manoeuvrability time on this, so, and if you do manage to get any on the page, it does just rub off. So there's no issues. Right, let's flip that. And we said about there, didn't we? could actually put my birdie there and put this one towards the top. I wanted to hide that bottom part of the twig. Yeah, that'll do me. I'm happy with that. So I'll just push that down with my hand. And then we can glue our birds down. I'm just going to use the same glue. So I'm putting a little bit more on the back of this because obviously this is going to go over the top of the texture paste. Come on. Starting to run out on me now. Just hope there's going to be enough for me to finish the page. And I'll have to get on to the interwebs and order some more, because this stuff, believe it or not, is not that readily available in the UK. We have a different version, which is, but it doesn't have quite the same precision nozzle. So that will do. And we'll glue that down. And I am aware that that's going off the edge of the page, which is fine. I will trim that off later. Just need to make sure that there's something holding those down for the time being, so I need some fairly heavy pots. That'll do me, I think, weight-wise. Okay, I'll leave those to dry for a second or two, and then I will be right back. Okay, so those birdies have had a little bit of time to cool down, to dry a little bit, and I've been fiddling with that jute rope just to try and get it to, I've cut it down and I've kind of manipulated the shape. I've frayed the edges a little bit just so that we've got a little bit of form, and then I'm going to grab just some of that glue that we used earlier, and I'm just going to add a little bit below the beaks of each one of the birds, like that. And then I'm going to drop that rope just into the glue, like so, just to hold that in place. And then do the same thing with this piece here. Now this glue will dry clear, and then I'm going to just pull that down. I knew that happened, but I didn't, but you know, I suspected it might try and move. And add a little bit more of the rope, or the glue, just about there. Just to hold it in place. Because I don't want my finger to stick in there either. And then I can just grab a little bit more glue just down here. And that will hopefully hold those pieces in place, and then put a little bit there. And that will hold the end of that tassel, if you like. So with any luck, that will hold that in place there. And I didn't get my head too much in shot then. I was so engrossed in getting the glue stuck down. I don't know whether I got my head in shot. Knowing me, I will have done. There. So that probably needs a good 5 or 10 minutes to set. So while that's doing that, a natural fibre string, jute or burlap, that's it. So all I have to do now is to add a border with book text or washi tape, and then add handwritten text, a quote or phrase at the bottom. Okay, now I'm quite liking this art journal page so far. I don't particularly want to ruin it by adding a load of handwritten text on it. So I might just cheat a little bit and print a quote that uses kind of like handwritten text as the font instead of doing it by hand. You know, a little bit of license is allowed as long as you're inspired by the page or the instructions. That's all that really counts. Anyway, let's let that set and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so while that's kind of finishing off drying, I'm going to jump in and just add in the sixth ingredient, add a border with book text or washi tape. Well, actually, I'm going to do both because I have some washi tape which is book text. So I shall just give that a tick, and then I'm going to run the washi tape across the bottom like so. And then I'm going to just fold it over. Like that. Don't particularly want a huge amount of a border, but just enough. I think let's just turn that around that way. Let's cut that one off. Alright, that isn't moving. Kind of like how this is mirroring the text that you can see through on the birds as well. A little, anyway. Just little hints. That's all you can really hope for. I'll just wrap that one round. And because we've cut the edge of the bird's feather off there, it's not going to matter too much if we do the same at this side, just to balance that off a little bit. Get rid of those fragments of washi tape off my scissors. Oh, would you believe it? Washi tape's just run out right at the very end. Wow, hateful creature. Right. I'm going to have to improvise. Glue. Would you believe it? Craziness. Right, so that will have to be snipped. Okay. Once again, the unexpected, expect the unexpected. Right, I'll be back in a minute when that has had a chance to dry for a few seconds or so. Or a few minutes. Okay, so I've given that a few minutes or so to dry, so it's not going to budge or move or anything. So the final piece to add, it says add handwritten text or quote or a phrase to your page. Now at this stage I don't really want to ruin this by adding some handwritten text, so what I've done, as I mentioned, is I've just quickly gone onto my computer and I've printed off a quote that incorporates 3 of the words for inspiration for the month. So we've got bloom, spring, growth, botanical and heart. So I've typed, give your heart the chance to bloom and grow. But I've used a handwriting font because I don't particularly want my handwriting to ruin this. So I've just printed it off on sticker paper. Now obviously if you've got a label printer that does different fonts and stuff, then you can do this. Or if you're feeling brave enough, obviously do it by hand. But I'm just not feeling brave enough today. I'm not feeling it today. So I'm going to stick it down just on the bottom, and I'm just going to gently rub it with my finger, because obviously I've got texture paste underneath there, so I just want to give that chance. Just push it, rub it, so that it goes into all the little nooks and crannies. And then I'm just going to get a little bit of a coloured pencil. This isn't a charcoal pencil or anything like that. It's actually just a normal coloured pencil that you'd use for colouring in things. I'm just going to lightly give it a bit of a border. Not water soluble, just ordinary. And then literally, if you want, you can just go under the birdie's feet just to add a little bit of grounding. If you wanted to, you could obviously add in a little eye, but I'm not going to on this one. I'm just going to leave that as it is. I'm happy with that. The only thing I want to do is just add a little bit, just a tiny bit of archival ink just around the edges, just to kind of take away that stark whiteness from the washi tape. And because we've got brown down here as well, it just helps to blend that in a little bit. So just to finish that off, it doesn't look quite so odd then. Oh, excuse me. And there we go. I think that is what we call done and dusted. So let's just quickly run through what we've got for the month and then just tick everything off just to make sure we've included everything. So add natural fibre, string, jute or burlap, yes. Use fragments of food packaging or labels, yes. Add texture with paste or paint through a stencil, yes. Stamp with white ink or paste, yes, which you can just still see the white stamp in there. Very subtle. Add a die cut or 2 or 3. Well, actually, we did add 3. Add a border with book text or washi tape. All done nicely, thank you very much. Add gesso mixed with a colour, which we did for our base. And then add handwritten text, quote or phrase. Well, kind of. Maybe a half mark. So I've used a rose pink, sunflower yellow and spring green in the back. And the words we've used: heart, bloom and grow, growth. 3 out of 5 ain't bad. Not that you have to use all of them or even any at all, they're just there to inspire. And I think that's it. So I'm going to call this art journal page done for the month. So today's date is Saturday the 2nd, so I'm going to actually sign it just down here at this side. So 2/3/19, there we go. So I'm not sure whether I'll be able to get this edited and up in time to go live on Saturday, so probably we'll go live on Sunday the 3rd, because I'll have more time then. So that's it for me for this mission inspiration. Don't forget, if you want to join in, then I'll put a link onto the screen here. That is the address of the Facebook group, and also I'll put a link in the description below so that you can just click on that and pop along and ask to join if you want to join in with the monthly fun. Twice, because we also have a mid-month mini as well as the main one at the start of the month. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please remember to give the video a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video, like I said at the beginning. That's all from me for now. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. You can almost hear the birds tweeting. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.